Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna. Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Let me put you on the spotlight. Yes, Prabhu. Prabhu, you can start now.
Okay. Jaya Radha Madhava, Jaya Kunja Bihari, 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 Gopi Jana Vallabha Girvaradhari, Jaya 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 Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Gopi Jana Vallabha Girvaradhari, Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girvaradhari, Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girvaradhari, Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girvaradhari, Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana, Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana, Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana, Yashodanandana Vrajana Ranjana, Yamuna Tira Vanachari, Yamuna Tira Vanachari, Yamuna Tira Vanachari, Natira Vanachari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Gopi Jana Vallabha Girvaradhari, Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girvaradhari, Shodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana, यशोदनन्दन व्रजनरञ्जन यशोदनन्दन व्रजनरञ्जन यशोदनन्दन व्रजनरञ्जन यशोदनन्दन व्रजनरञ्जन यशोदनन्दन व्रजनरञ्जन यमुनातीरावनचारि तीरावनचारि जय राधा माधवा कुंज विहारी जय राधा माधवा कुंज विहारी हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Gaur Premanande Hari 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 Bol. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Nananjana Shalakhaya Chakshurunmitam Mena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Mena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapadakalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Swajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitam Scha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute. Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rushabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye. Vancha kalpadrubhyascha krupa sindhu bevacha patitana pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vishnu Bhutale Shrimate Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vishnu Bhutale Shrimate Vedanta Swamiti Nami. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatati Shatarini Mukham Karoti Vachalam Pangum Lingayate Yat Kripatam Mande Shri Gurum Dinatharinam. Hare Krishna. Welcome to the Wednesday evening class at ISKCON of Silicon Valley. This is the online version of class. So thank you all for joining. Today's topic of discussion is on Bhagavad Gita. from chapter 4. I have been talking on Bhagavad Gita, and the last class that I presented was also on chapter 4, but we covered verses 24 to I think verses 30, 29 to 30. So now today in this chapter, in this presentation, I will cover the rest of the verses beginning from 33, verse 33 to end of the chapter. We will touch base on 32 and 31 and 32. And then we will discuss in detail the verses from 33 to the end of the chapter, which is verse 42. So let me share my screen. I hope you're seeing my screen.
Yes, Prabhu, we can see.
Okay. So the transcendental knowledge. Now we have seen that so this is the overview of presentation today. We'll go with the context of the today's class, and then we will discuss the sacrifice of material possessions versus sacrifice in knowledge, and which is better and why is it better. Then we will discuss what is the process of obtaining this knowledge. Then we will discuss the results of our attaining this knowledge and the glories. And we also will discuss what is this the knowledge actually is. What is this knowledge that we are talking about? And then we will discuss, what are the characteristics of the person who wants to achieve this. And then we will also discuss what is the the results of a person who does not want to pursue this knowledge, or the people who are faithless. So we'll discuss about the people who are faithful and faithless. What are the results that they both get? And then finally, Krishna gives instruction to Arjuna, and we will see what that instruction is. So beginning with the context, let me close this. So in chapter 4, Krishna mainly describes about the transcendental knowledge. He discusses, what is the transcendental knowledge? What are his activities? What is the nature of his, appearance? And then he discusses, what is the action in an inaction and inaction in action. What are the activities that one should do to acquire this knowledge? So he discusses that. And then he discusses the principle of the sacrifice, Brahma Havir, Brahma Hutam. We discussed that this is the 424 verse, very, very, very important verse. That discusses the principle of the sacrifice, how we can engage the material elements, staying in the material world to get out of this material world. Right? So we are in this material world. There are material elements around. How do we engage, make use of this material world and get out of this material world? So that is the principle. And then he discusses about the various type of sacrifices from 425 to 429 and 30. He discusses, the different types of sacrifice for the demigods, and sacrifice done by Gnanis in Brahman realization, the sacrifices done by the brahmachari in controlling the senses, by household people in regulating the senses, He also discusses the sacrifice in austerity, and many other sacrifices that he discusses. And finally, in 31st verse, he says, Nayam loko sthiya agnasa kutonya kuru sattama. Says, O best of the Kuru, without performing this sacrifice, one cannot be happy in this life or next life. The people who are in this condition environment, in this material world, they don't know what is the eternal position. So they are in this world because they have done some sinful activities, but they don't know the purpose of their life. And since they don't know the purpose of their life, they don't even want to try, since they don't have the purpose, they don't even know what to do. So, but Krishna has, Prabhupada says, there is only one loophole that Krishna has given. And what is that loophole? That loophole is the human life. Only in the human life can you get out of this material world. And then, Prabhupada mentions that, there are Vedas, and there are different kinds of sacrifices that is mentioned in the Vedas. One is for economic benefit, or, doing some sense control, or, attaining the knowledge, and then towards the, ultimately attaining the loving service unto the Supreme Person, Lord Shri Krishna. That is the goal of the Vedas. But since they don't know the purpose and they can't, engage in this sacrifice, because they don't engage in this sacrifice, there is no happiness. And so there is no happiness in this life or next, because they will be continuing with the activities which will bound them to again take a birth in next life, and they will again continue in the next life with the same impressions that they have been doing in the present life. So that continues on, continues perpetually, right? So there is no peace in this life or the next life. And then he says, Evam bahu vidha jnana vitata brahmano mukhe karmajan viditan sarvan evam gnatva vimukshase. Now, all these sacrifice activities that is mentioned are approved by Vedas, and they are born out of the different types of work. People, based on their nature, their mentality of their, that they have acquired in these modes of material nature, that they, a certain type of activities are prescribed, and they are all mentioned in Vedas. A person who knows this principle will become liberated. That's what Krishna is saying in this verse. And then the next verse till the 42nd verse is the topic of discussion for today. So starting with 43, says, Shreyan dravya mayad yagna gnana yagna parantapa sarvam karmakhilam partha gnane parisamapyate. Is saying Shreyan dravya mayad yagna, greater than dravya mayad means the material possessions, yagna. The yagna, by sacrificing the material possession, greater than that, Shreyan dravya mayad yagna Jnana yagna parantapa. He's saying, oh, chastiser of the enemies. So this is very important. We will see why he's, Krishna is referring to Arjuna, he's saying, oh, chastiser of enemies. He's reminding that, okay, that better than this is jnana yagna, doing the sacrifice in knowledge. Sarvam karmakhilam partha. all this karma, sarvam karma, all these sacrifices, they merge in totality, means they culminate in jnana. So sarvam karma akhilam pata jnana parisamapyate. So the ultimate goal of all these sacrifices is attaining the jnana. And sacrifice done in jnana is superior to just renouncing the material possessions. This is what Krishna is saying. So we'll go to next verse. This verse 434 is a very foundational verse for our progress in spiritual life. It says tad vidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshayanti te jnanam jnaninas tattva darshinaha. So here Krishna is giving, so early in verse 33 he says sacrifice in jnana is better, and all the sacrifices done in karma culminate in jnana yoga. So that is the summary of the previous verse. Here Krishna is giving the process and the method of attaining this jnana. He says tad vidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshayanti te jnanam jnaninas tattva darshinaha. He said, just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master. Tad vidhi pranipatena, all the sacrifices, or the knowledge of all the sacrifices, it says try to understand vidhi, try to understand pranipatena by approaching a spiritual master. Inquire from him submissively and render service unto him. The self-realized souls can impart knowledge unto you because they have seen the truth. He says pariprashnena sevaya. Pariprashnena sevaya means you should inquire from him and do some service. Sevaya, do some service. Upadekshayanti te jnanam, then they will impart you this knowledge. Jnaninas tattva darshina, because they are jnanis, they have seen the tattva, the truth. Here the truth here refers to the absolute truth, because they have seen it. Darshina, they have seen it, because they have seen it, so they can give you the knowledge. So three things here Krishna is mentioning, that you should first approach a spiritual master. You should be submissive. You should do a submissive inquiries, and you should do some service unto him. Right? Inquire, submissive, and do the service. The three things he is saying that one should do. So now we see that for any thing that you want to learn, one has to actually approach an expert. If you want to learn something, you want to be great in something, or you want to learn at least, mathematics, you want to go to an expert, who is an expert in that mathematics area. So, and we are talking about the spiritual knowledge. This is not an ordinary knowledge. This is a spiritual knowledge. You cannot acquire this spiritual knowledge by any material means. Just by reading the books, you cannot acquire. So here a proper process is being given. One should approach a spiritual master, and that spiritual master has to be bona fide. He should be in the line of disciplic succession. So unless one is in the disciplic succession, one cannot impart the knowledge to anyone, the spiritual knowledge to anyone, because that knowledge is not an ordinary knowledge. That knowledge is coming from Krishna himself. In the beginning of the chapter 4, Krishna says that he has imparted this knowledge to sun god, but this knowledge had been lost eventually, and now he's reviving this knowledge for the benefit of all for the generations to come after Arjuna. So he's saying that I will impart this transcendental knowledge to you. So that is the proper process of learning the knowledge. Now one may, a example can be given with regards to this, one can give an example how the electricity is transferred, right? Now, there is the source of the electricity, and it goes to, if you see in this picture, it goes to the source, and there is a transmission lines, it goes to the substations, then the distribution lines, and eventually it will make out to your house, right? And when you plug any apparatus into the house, in any electric appliances into the house, and it starts working, right? Now, if there is any leg broken in this transmission, then you won't get the electricity, right? You have to establish that connection back, just like what Krishna has done. That he says that the system of transmission of knowledge has been broken. So he's imparting it again to the Arjuna, so that this knowledge continues to be given to for the further generations. So now the electricity reaches your house, you plug in, everything works fine, right? But here in the purport, actually in the verse, Krishna is saying there are three things which is important. One is you need to inquire submissively and do some service. Without the service and the submissiveness, the inquiries has no effect, and then you won't get the knowledge. So if you have a faulty appliance or a bulb, if you have the figment, the electric figment, if you are looking at the condensate bulb and the electric pigment is broken, even though the electricity is there in your house, it's not transmitted to that bulb because that bulb is faulty. Similarly, if you are not submissive, you are not doing some service, the knowledge that is there is not, you won't be able to receive it. So this is very important, that what Krishna is mentioning, that one has to be submissive and do some service. Now, in modern day, when we try to get this knowledge, we, actually sometimes, or most of the times, we have to pay the money and get this knowledge, right? I mean, you have to pay the money, and sometimes, the more money you give, sometimes you can get into the elite colleges, and most of those elite colleges are very expensive. So they want money, right? But the Vedic system is based on the Gurukula system, where everyone is, comes, whether he is poor or from rich background or any background, they are given the knowledge, right? And if you think about Krishna, I mean, of course, Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but even if you take, just keep that aside for some time and see that he was a son of a Vasudeva, who was a king, and he was also been taken care by his foster father Nanda Maharaj, who is also very rich. So even he has to go and attain the Gurukul and do some menial service. He has to go out and collect the paraphernalia, the wood, bring it home, so that his guru can do the fire sacrifice. So Krishna by himself, even though he is a Supreme Lord, he is himself giving the leading by the example that one has to gain the knowledge, one has to take shelter of the spiritual master. And then one has to be merely, do a menial service, and to perform, to satisfy the spiritual master, one has to serve him, do some seva, And today is actually a disappearance day of Lokanath Goswami. We'll talk briefly about him and Narottam Das Thakur in this context. So he was Lokanath Das Goswami was a very elevated Vaishnava. His single point attention was attachment to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He was so attached. He was told to go to Vrindavan. He went to Navdeep to see Lord Chaitanya, and he was ordered to go to Vrindavan. He was so he was feeling the the separation that he started going to Vrindavan, but he is feeling so much separation from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that he is constantly crying, and because his tears are filled with his eyes are filled with tears, he could not even see the path. So generally, if it takes 5 villages, the time taken to travel 5 villages, he just traveled 1 village. He was so much feeling the separation from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So eventually he goes to Vrindavan, and he decided that he will not initiate anyone. Because he didn't want to get service from anyone. So he thinks, he was thinking that if I get disciples, they will offer me, some services, they will present me everything. And he doesn't want to, and he might, he didn't want to, get into this. So he said he would not initiate. But Narottam Das Thakur wanted to, he only wanted to take initiation from Lokanath Maharaj. Lokanath Goswami, Lokanath Das Goswami. But here is the conundrum. He decided he will not give the initiation. So he said, okay, I have to, do some seva onto my spiritual master. What he used to do is early morning, where Lokanath Das Goswami used to go for doing his morning duties, Narottam Das used to go, and before his Lokanath Das Goswami used to go, he used to clean that area. Not only that area, but prior to that also used to get clean. And Lokanath Das Goswami used to wonder what is happening. Initially it didn't occur to him, but he started noticing that it is clean. When it's that someone is doing this. So he decided to see who is that person who is doing this, and he saw that it was Narottam Das Thakur. And he was so touched by his humility. Narottam Das Thakur was the son of a king. He was prince. He has given up everything, and he wanted to take the shelter. And thus Lokanath Das Goswami was pleased by his such a humility, and he gave he ultimately gave him initiation, and he was the only disciple of Lokanath Das Goswami. So from this example, we can see that one has to do some menial service for the satisfaction of spiritual master, and then he can impart that knowledge to us. And also in this purport, Prabhupada says that one should not do absurd inquiries. And there are 2 things he mentioned. One is absurd. Let me see here. So one should, should not do absurd inquiries and blind following. So without thinking, without putting your intelligence and things like that, if the blind following is not recommended here. And people generally, we see that take advantage of this. People just blindly follow because everyone is following, and they blindly follow, and which is not recommended. And and absurd inquiries is also condemned here. Prabhupada says that he comes to the spiritual master and say, "Can you show me the God?" That's absurd inquiry. He even if you show him the God, will he accept it? Right? He is coming with a challenging mood and show me the God, and if you show him the God, will he accept it? Right? And people and some so-called spiritual master, they say, "Oh yeah, I will show you the God," and they take advantage of them. So these two are condemned here. I just wanted to point this out, and now we can go to the next verse. Verse 35. Yad gnatva na punarmoham evam yashyashi pandavaha ena bhutani asheshani drakshyashi atmani athomayi. By knowing yad gnatva, by knowing this knowledge, na punar moham, you will not get into illusion. Punha, again, moham, to illusion. Evam yashyashi pandavaha. You should, yashyashi means you should go. So yat gnatva na punar moham evam yashyashi pandavaha. By knowing this knowledge, one will not go into illusion. So here Krishna is giving us the result of performing, getting this knowledge. And then he says, Yena bhutani asheshani drakshyashi atmani athomayi. And also, you will, by this knowledge, you will see that all living entities are but part of Supreme. You will see Drakshyashi, you will see Atmani Athomayi. All the living entities are part of Supreme. So now he's saying two things. You will get two things. What is that? The first is that you will not fall into the illusion. The second is that you will get a pure vision of the knowledge, pure vision of the knowledge that the living entities are part and parcel of Krishna. So these are the two things Krishna is saying here. So here Krishna says, the results of receiving knowledge from self-realized soul, or one who knows things is learning that living beings are part and parcel of Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna. Anything without this knowledge, the sense of existing separate from Krishna, is called Maya. Something that we have nothing to do with Krishna, that Krishna is only a historical personality. And thus, they wanted to embrace the impersonal Brahman. They wanted to merge into the impersonal Brahman. So there is a example that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Maharaj gives in Upakhyana Upadesha. So that book gives you a story, tells about the story and the lesson behind the story. So there was a mother. She was a widow mother, a very poor mother, and she had one child. And that child was the only hope for her. So she wanted to give the best education to him. So she hired one teacher, and she could hardly pay the fees. So she used to work hard to pay his fees so that he can be educated and she can have a better life. So, and then as the days and the years passed by, he came to 7th grade, and then the teacher was teaching him geometry. And he was saying that, okay, let's represent the triangle by ABC. Okay, so he was learning triangle, ABC. If you are all familiar how we used to, triangle and ABC we used to do on the side by. And then, so that he was learning like that. And he was reciting that, saying that, okay, let's represent the triangle ABC. And his mother heard that, and she was like, she got mad, and she rushed to that teacher, and she was saying, what are you doing? You are teaching ABC. He's in 7th grade now. You're still teaching him ABC. He learned that ABC while he was like infant. Why are you teaching him ABC? And she was so mad. And she said that you are no longer needed. And the teacher did not even have a chance to, respond her. He was like forced to leave. There was no option for him but to leave. Now, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Maharaj says, this is, the arguments put forth by all the karmis, yogis, and the gyanis is just like the arguments put by this mother. What they argue is that, all these problems in this material world is because of doing some service. We are either slave to our senses, we serve our relatives, husband, wife, children, or we are, slave to this senses, and the ultimate goal is to, don't do this service, come out of this service attitude. And thus they say that we'll merge into Brahman and no more service after merging into Brahman, because they attribute all the problems due to the service. And they say, if you say them that, okay, devotional service is the ultimate aim, they say that, even after attaining the liberation or attaining the self-realized state, one has to again do the service to the Supreme Person. This is useless. Because of only the service, we are getting into this problem. How can we accept this? So they don't accept it. But they don't know that the service is the eternal position. Service onto the Supreme Lord is the eternal position of the soul. But you do service when you are at a sadhaka state, you do service, and then you keep on doing service, you will come to a state of bhava. Then you will attain to the state of prema. But even after attaining to the state of prema, you are still doing the service. You are still doing the service. So what they don't understand is, even after getting educated, you can still make use of these letters, ABC, in a different artistic way or a different way of representing. And here, the example of the devotional service is given, that you still keep doing the devotional service even after attaining the self-realized state. You don't give up. So the service in the material world is not the same as service doing, you cannot equate this both two of them. Service, the devotional service, and the service done for the sense gratification and generally in the material world. So so this is the example, very good example that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Maharaj has given. And so we can learn from that is that our and also our eternal position is of service. It is a Jivera Swarupa hoy, Krishnera Nityadas. My eternal position is that I'm the eternal servant of Krishna. That is the service, and this is the actual dharma. So Prabhupada says that if you think what is the dharma of a sugar, the dharma of a sugar is sweetness, right? If you take the sweetness out of sugar, it is not a sugar. right? So a dharma of a living entity is a service. But if the service is misplaced, then that is Maya. And what is the actual service of the human entity? It is said, Savai Pumsho Paro Dharmo, Yato Bhaktir Adokshaje, Ahetuki Apratihata, Yayatma Suprasiddhati. The supreme dharma of a human being or a human entity or the living entity is to perform devotional service unto the Lord. And that service is uninterrupted and unmotivated. So that is the eternal dharma of a living entity. So one should understand. So that is the transcendental knowledge that Krishna is referring here. Just if you don't do it, then there is no purpose of life. You cannot be happy, as we have seen. An example again can be given here is that if you cut off an arm from your body, that arm, the cut off arm, has no use. Right? But the use of the arm is only when it is attached to the body, right? So that it can feed the body, and then it can get nourished. It can get nourished by feeding the body. Unless you are attached to the devotional service, you cannot be happy. That is the eternal dharma, and that is the knowledge. One is, I am the part and parcel of Krishna, right? And my service is only to, do the loving devotional service unto the Lord. So that is the transcendental knowledge that is giving. And the two things benefit from this is saying is, you will never fall once you attain this knowledge, you will never fall into this illusion. Second is, you will get a pure vision where you will see all the living entities are part and parcel of Krishna. Next verse, 36. Api chet asi papebhyo sarve papya papakrit tamaha sarvam gnana plavenaiva vrijinam santarishyase. Even if you are considered to be the most sinful of all sinners, when you are situated in the boat of transcendental knowledge, you will be able to cross over the ocean of miseries. Ape chet asi papebhyo. If you are, the greatest of the sinners, sarvebhya papakritamaha. If you are the greatest of all the sinners, still by this boat of transcendental knowledge, you can cross the ocean of these miseries. This is a very comforting verse that he is saying, doesn't matter if you have done so many sins earlier, but if you are situated in this transcendental knowledge, in the pursuit of this transcendental knowledge, you will eventually cross over these miseries. And Prabhupada gives an example of a swimmer in the ocean. No matter how expert the swimmer is, if he's in the ocean, it is tough for him to survive unless someone picks him up. So we are in this ocean, and our spiritual master is the only hope. He can get out of this ocean by imparting the transcendental knowledge. Right? So the next verse, Yathai dahamsi samidho gnir bhasmasat kurute arjuna jnanagni sarva karmani bhasmasat kurute tataha. Yataha, just as edhamsi, the firewood, samidaha, blazing, agnir, fire, bhasmasat, ashes, just as the firewood, just as the fire burns the firewood to ashes, just like that, the fire of knowledge, Jnana Agni Sarva Karmani. Jnana Agni Sarva Karmani. The fire of knowledge will destroy all the reactions to the material activities. So he has given the knowledge. And here Prabhupada says that there are many stages of reaction. Reaction in the making, reaction fructifying, reaction already achieved, and reaction a priori. All these reactions will get, burns everything to ashes. All these reactions will get, the reactions which are not even manifested, which are in the process of getting manifest, or which is, manifested, all these reactions will get fired. And he says here, one should see, it's a blazing fire. It's not an ordinary fire. It's a blazing fire. Just so once it comes into contact with the firewood, it will just burns everything to ashes. Just like that, this the knowledge of this knowledge is just like fire, that once you have this knowledge, all the reactions of this material activities will at once get to get burnt. Nahi jnanena shadrisham pavitram iha vidyate tat swayam yoga samsiddha kalena atmani vindati. So in this world, there is nothing so sublime and pure as transcendental knowledge. Such knowledge is the mature fruit of all mysticism. And one who has become accomplished in the practice of devotional service enjoys this knowledge within himself in due course of time. So here the glory of the transcendental knowledge is described. It says, Ya na hi gnanena sadrisham, na nothing. He certainly gnanena with knowledge, sadrisham in comparison. There is nothing in comparison to this transcendental knowledge, because it is pavitram, it is sanctified, it is so sublime. Iha, in this world, vidyate exists. So there is nothing as pure, as sublime as the transcendental knowledge that exists in this material world. Swayam himself, yoga in devotion, samsiddhaha, he who is mature, kalena in course of time, atmani in himself, vindati, enjoys. So one who has acquired this knowledge, or who has been practicing the devotional service, he enjoys this. He is situated in the self, that he understands this knowledge, and eventually comes to the ultimate realization that that he has to do service unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, loving devotional service unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that knowledge he will get in due course of time. So purport here, when we speak of transcendental knowledge, we do so in terms of spiritual understanding. As such, there is nothing so sublime and pure as transcendental knowledge. Ignorance is cause of our bondage, and knowledge is cause of our liberation. This knowledge is the mature fruit of the devotional service, and when one is situated in the transcendental knowledge, he need not search for peace elsewhere, for he enjoys peace within himself. Once he's attained the transcendental knowledge, that's it. He doesn't have to look anywhere else, because he he has achieved the ultimate peace. In other words, this knowledge and peace culminates in Krishna consciousness. This is the last word in Bhagavad Gita. So verse 39 and 40 talks, that verse 39 talks about the person who can attain this knowledge. What is his mentality, and who can achieve this knowledge, and what is the result of achieving that knowledge. And verse 40 speaks about a person who is faithless, ignorance, and a person who cannot attain this transcendental knowledge, and what happens to them. So Shraddhaval labhate jnanam tat parha sama yatendriyaha jnanan labdha param shantim achirena digacchati. Shraddhavan, a faithful, labhate, achieves jnanam, knowledge. He says, Shraddhavan, one should have faith. One should have faith in executing this transcendental, in trying to know this transcendental knowledge. So he should have a faith. Tat paraha, and he should be very much attached to it. He should have a determination to know this knowledge. So one is faithful, and the second one is determination. Samaya tendriyaha. The third is control of the senses. So he talks about three things here. Shraddhavan, that one should have a faith. Tatparaha, one should have a determination. And the third one is samya tendriyaha, control of the senses. Then what happens when you do this? Jnanam labdva param shantim. Having achieved this knowledge, once you have these qualities, you will get the knowledge, right? Now, having attained this knowledge, you will attain peace. Achirena gacchati. When will you achieve? Immediately, very soon. Achirena, very soon, adi gacchati, attains. Right? So, one should be faithful, one should be determined, and one should have the control of senses. Once we do this, he will achieve this transcendental knowledge, and having achieved this transcendental knowledge, he will attain the ultimate peace, or he will get liberated very soon. Achirenadi gacchati. A faithful man who is dedicated to transcendental knowledge and who subdues his senses is eligible to achieve such knowledge, and having achieved it, he quickly attains the supreme peace. Purport here. Such knowledge in Krishna consciousness can be achieved by a faithful person who believes firmly in Krishna. One is called faithful who thinks that simply by acting in Krishna consciousness, he can attain the highest perfection. Here Prabhupada gives, what do you mean by faithful? Who is a faithful person? A person is called faithful who thinks that simply by performing the Krishna conscious activities, he can attain the highest perfection. That is meant by a faithful person. And this faith is attained by discharge of devotional service and by chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, which cleanses one's heart of all faithful dirt. So he's giving that what is the process of achieving the faith as well. He says that you chant this Mahamantra, and by chanting this Mahamantra, one will clean one's heart. There are 9 stages of
performing the devotional service is mentioned, it is starts with the faith, and then association with the saintly people, and then you get cleaned, and then you have a nishta, then you will get to the ruchi, then asakti, then bhava, and then prema. I might have missed one or two in the middle, but that is, performing different stages of devotional services. But it starts with chanting the holy name, and thus you get the faith. And over and above this, one should control the senses. A person who is faithful to Krishna, who controls the senses, can easily attain the perfection in the knowledge of Krishna consciousness without delay. Right? So one should be faithful, determined, and control one's self to get this knowledge. And once you get this knowledge, we can attain the liberation very soon. Now, 40th verse talks about the people, the different types of people who cannot attain this knowledge, and what will happen to them. Ajnanascha Shraddhadhanascha Samshayatma Vinishyati Nayam Lokosthina Paro Na Sukham Samshayatmanaha. So he talks about three persons. Ajnana, a fool who has no knowledge in the standard scriptures. Ashraddha means he has no faith in the revealed scriptures. And Samshayatma is doubtful. And what happens to all these kinds of people? They fall down. They fall down in this world. Nayam lokosti na paro. So they fall down, and they will neither achieve happiness in this world or next world. Na sukham samshayatmanaha. This, for the person who are doubtful, or a doubtful person, he cannot achieve happiness in this life or the next life. So here three persons are mentioned again. The person Ajnana, who is fool. He has no knowledge, he has no faith. So they cannot achieve this transcendental knowledge. The second category of people are Ashraddhadhana. They have no faith. They might have some knowledge. They might have the knowledge, but their knowledge, they are confused because there are so many arguments. People are arguing, okay, this is the interpretation of this, and no, this is not, but this is the interpretation. So he gets confused, and, so he says, okay, forget, I don't have faith, in this. So he has no faith. And the other category is doubtful, the person who doubt. He has knowledge and he has faith, but he is doubtful that whether it will work or not for me. Whatever is there he accepts it, but he is doubtful whether it will work on me. All these three categories of the people cannot achieve the transcendental knowledge, and they fall down. And for these people, there is no peace in this life or the next life. So purport here, out of many standard and authoritative revealed scriptures, the Bhagavad Gita is the best. Person who are almost like animals, have no faith in or knowledge of. So here the people, Ajnanas, Prabhupada is comparing them to animals. They have no faith and they have no knowledge, right? So they have no faith in or knowledge of the standard revealed scriptures. And some, even though they have knowledge of and can cite passages from the revealed scriptures, have actually no faith in these words. They get bewildered by different arguments people are making. And even though Others may have faith in scriptures like Bhagavad Gita. They do not believe in the worship of, Supreme Personality of Godhead. So they have faith in whatever Bhagavad Gita is saying, but they don't believe whether it will work for me or not, and they don't believe in the worship of Supreme Personality of Godhead. Such persons cannot have any standing in Krishna consciousness. They fall down. So these people, this type of people, they are sure to fall down. No scope of any progress in spiritual life. So out of all above mentioned persons, those who have no faith and are always doubtful make no progress at all. Men without faith in God and his revealed world find no good in this world, nor in the next. So they will not be happy in this world or in the next. For them, there is no happiness whatsoever. One should therefore follow the principles of real scriptures with faith, thereby be raised to the platform of the knowledge. Only this knowledge will help one become promoted to the transcendental platform of spiritual understanding. In other words, doubtful person have no status whatsoever in the spiritual emancipation. One should therefore follow in footsteps of great acharyas who are in the disciplic succession and thereby attain success. Right? So here Prabhupada is concluding that there is, he says there is no happiness, right? So one should follow the revealed scriptures with faith and come to the platform of knowledge. And how to gain this knowledge, what is the method of attaining the knowledge is one should inquire from spiritual master, one should be submissive, one should be serve the spiritual master, and that spiritual master has to be from the disciplic succession, coming from the parampara. Like here, I haven't shown this. And in ISKCON, we are from a Brahma Gaudiya parampara, where our, the parampara is originating, of course, from Krishna, but through Brahma, and all the way to, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati and Prabhupada, and now the disciples of the Prabhupada, right? And so on. And that is the process of attaining the transcendental knowledge. So, next verse. Yoga sannyasta karmanam jnana sanchinna samshayam atmavatam na karmani nibadananti dhananjaya. Yoga sannyasata, yoga by devotional service in karma yoga. Sannyasta, one who has renounced karmanam, the fruits of the action. So here Krishna is saying that by performing the karma yoga, by doing this karma yoga, but in what what kind of activities? He's saying that one who is renounced in doing this karma yoga, and he has renounced the fruits of the action. So he's saying by devotional service in karma yoga, one who has renounced the fruits of action, jnana sanchinna samshayan, who has performed this karma the activities of karma yoga by renouncing the fruits of the actions, and by jnana sanchinna samshayan, by destroying the doubts by jnana, and whose doubts have been destroyed by transcendental knowledge, is situated factually in the self. And for the person who is in that state, for that person, there is no reactions of the work. Atma vantam na karmani. He's, he's Atmavan. He is situated in self. Means he has the knowledge. He has the knowledge of what his eternal position is. I am the eternal part and parcel of Krishna, and my dharma is to perform devotional service unto the Lord. Such a person is situated in self. For person like that, the reactions of all his activities, he is not bound by the reactions of his activities. Nibadananti Dhananjaya. O conqueror of riches, he is not bound by the reactions of work. So one who acts in devotional service, renouncing the fruits of his actions, and whose doubts have been destroyed by transcendental knowledge, is situated factually in the self. Thus he is not bound by the reactions of work. O conqueror of riches. So he's coming to the conclusion. So he's telling that, by doing this karma yoga, nishkama karma yoga. So there are three activities actually for nishkama karma yoga. One is there is no desire of fruitive, no material desire, and one will act without attachment to the results of fruitive actions. And third, he is doing his activities for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord. If he's doing in this, and by doing this, he will come to a state of Jnana Yoga. So the culmination of Niskama Karma Yoga is Jnana Yoga. So he has attained the knowledge. And by attaining the knowledge, he has destroyed all his doubts. And any activity he is doing, any activity he does in that state of knowledge, there is no reactions. So he's just before he tells the final instruction to Arjuna, he's saying that there is no reaction. So we'll see what is that final instruction and why this verse is there. Right? He says, "O conqueror of riches," So the final verse of this chapter and the instruction to the Arjuna, he says, "Tasmat ajnana sambhutam hrutstam gnana shinatmanaha chittavainam samshayam yogam athistothishta bharata." So tasmat, therefore. So he said, what was the conclusion? That a person, in 41, he's saying a person who has done karma yoga without attachment to the fruitive actions, and who has attained the knowledge, whose doubts have been destroyed, that there are no reactions for his work. Therefore, tasma, therefore, ajnana sambhutam, destroy this ajnana, destroy this ajnana, sambhutam, which is born of ignorance, situated in the heart. So, and hristanam gnana shinatmanaha. So he's saying here, actually it's, it doesn't align, the meaning doesn't align word by word here. So here is saying, therefore, the doubts that have been arisen. So let's look at the translation. Therefore, the doubts which have arisen in your heart, out of ignorance, should be slayed by the weapon of knowledge. Armed with yoga, O Bharata, stand and fight. So he's saying all the doubts that has arisen in your heart, samshayan, all the doubts that have arisen in your heart because of the ignorance, because of the ignorance, that doubts are there, and this is there in your heart. Where is it situated? It is in Hritsthanam, it is situated in your heart. He's saying, cut down these doubts. Chitvainam, cut down these doubts with what? He's saying, cut down this doubt with jnana, Jnana shinatmanaha. So cut down this doubt with the gnana. And then he's saying, O descendant of Bharata, stand up and fight. Athisto Bharata. Please stand up and fight. So this is the ultimate instruction that Krishna is giving in this verse. So he has talked about, different sacrifices, Jnana yoga, Dhyana yoga, Karma yoga. He has talked about everything, and he has talked about the knowledge. But here again, he is saying that get up and fight. He is telling him to perform the Karma yoga, but Karma yoga with Jnana, with the knowledge. Stand up and fight. This is the ultimate instruction that he is giving. So let's look at the purport. I think we have 5 minutes. The yoga system instructed in this chapter is called Sanata Yoga, or eternal activities performed by living entities. The yoga has 2 divisions of sacrificial actions. One is called sacrifice of material possessions, and other is knowledge of the self. So Prabhupada says that there are 2 divisions of sacrificial actions. One is sacrificing your material possessions, and then sacrificing in knowledge, sacrificing of your possessions also with the knowledge, right, for the satisfaction of the Krishna, for satisfaction of the Supreme Lord, right? But the sacrifices of the material possessions are, again, it is in the material realm. There is no benefit for that. If the sacrifice of the one's material position is not dotel for spiritual relation, then such sacrifice becomes material. So there is no spiritual benefit for it. But one who performs a sacrifice with the spiritual objective in devotional service makes the perfect sacrifice. When we come to the transcendental activities, we find there are 2, these are again divided into 2. So he talks about 2 divisions of the activities: material activities, material sacrifice, that means sacrifice of material possessions without any spiritual objective. The second is with the spiritual objective, right? Now further he is saying that the spiritual activity is again divided into 2, that we'll see, namely understanding oneself, and the truth regarding the transcendental personality of Godhead. So there are 2 things he is mentioning. One is my own eternal position, that I am the part and parcel of Krishna, and my ultimate dharma is to serve Lord. And the second thing he's saying is the truth about the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Earlier in the chapter, in the 4th chapter, Krishna talks about his, how he is unborn, how he is not affected by the material modes, how he appears in this in this world again and again to protect the devotees. He talks, so all this transcendental nature of these activities is what that Prabhupada is referring here. So one who follows the path of Bhagavad Gita as it is can very easily understand these 2 important divisions of the knowledge. Right? So for him, there is no difficulty in obtaining the perfect knowledge as a part and parcel of Lord, and such understanding is beneficial, for such a person can easily understand the transcendental activities of the Lord. So here Prabhupada is saying, for a person who follows the path of Bhagavad Gita, these 2 spiritual things can be easily understood. One is the eternal constitutional position, and the second is the transcendental nature of the Lord, right? So in the beginning, so that's what it said. Transcendental activities of Lord were discussed by the Supreme Lord himself. One who does not understand the instruction of Gita is faithless and is to be considered to be misusing the fragmental independence awarded by him. In spite of such instruction, one does not understand the real nature of the Lord as eternal, blissful, all-knowing Supreme Personality of Godhead. Certainly is fool number 1. Ignorance can be removed by gradual acceptance of principle of Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness is awakened by different types of sacrifice to the demigod, sacrifice to Brahman, and these are all the types of sacrifices that Krishna has mentioned earlier in the chapter. Sacrifice in celibacy, in household life, in controlling the senses, in practicing mystic yoga, in penance, in foregoing material position, in studying the Vedas, and partaking of social institution called Varnashrama Dharma. So one can practice any of these sacrifices and come gradually to the state of transcendental knowledge. All these are known as sacrifice, and all of them are based on regulation activities. But here Prabhupada mentions a very important thing. But within all these important activities, the important factor is self-realization. The ultimate goal of all this sacrifice has to be self-realization. If that is missing, then there is no use of doing these sacrifices. One who seeks that objective is the real student of the Bhagavad Gita. One who doubts the authority of Krishna falls back. One is therefore advised to study the Bhagavad Gita or any other scripture under the bona fide spiritual master with service and surrender. A bona fide spiritual master is the disciplic succession from time eternal, and it does not deviate at all from the instructions of Supreme Lord as they are imparted millions of years ago to the Sun God, and from whom the instructions of Bhagavad Gita have come down to the earthly kingdom. So this is again the whole process, as we discussed, that one has to take the shelter of the spiritual master and do some service, inquire submissively from him, and thus one will get the knowledge from the spiritual master, and that is the process, which is mentioned here. So thus so I conclude my presentation here. So just in a summary, what we have done today is we have given the context where the current today's presentation is. We have discussed the verses from 33 to 42. This is just after the Krishna recommends all types of sacrifices before verse 33, and he says that one who does sacrifices, one who does not do sacrifices will not become happy in this life or the next life. And all these sacrifices are mentioned in the Vedas, and the sacrifices are born based on the different kinds of activities, or based on the modes that one has acquired in this material world. And then he talks in for 33. We saw what is the culmination of all these sacrifices is Jnana Yoga, and Jnana Yoga is better than Karma Yoga. And then Krishna talks about what is the method of attaining the knowledge, which is to take shelter of the supreme, the spiritual master, perform service, inquire from him, do some seva to him, and thus attain the knowledge. And then we have discussed about the results of attaining the knowledge. What is the results of attaining the knowledge, and faithful and the faithless persons, what is their destination. For faithful people, they achieve this transcendental knowledge. Once they achieve the transcendental knowledge, they will quickly attain the spiritual destination. And for faithless person, they fall down. Again, we talked about for the faithful person, there has to be faith, shraddha, there has to be a determination, and there has to be control of senses. For person who cannot get the transcendental knowledge, or the person who are ajnana, foolish, person who are ashraddha, they have no faith. The person the third category is the doubtful persons. And finally, Krishna says that the people who do all their activities without attachment to the fruit of actions, and thus they kill the doubt with the knowledge. For them, there is no reaction to their activities. And finally, Krishna says, therefore, you get up and fight. Destroy this doubt by the weapon of knowledge. Get up and fight. And he prescribes, again, karma yoga here, but in knowledge. Right? So this is the very important instruction that we have to perform our activities for the satisfaction of Krishna. But we have to, do our activities. We cannot prematurely renounce things. And that was what Arjuna's position was. He was trying to prematurely renounce things without any knowledge. So thus ends the presentation. We are 2 minutes over time. But if there are any questions, comments, or corrections, please, we can open it up now.
Hare Krishna, Sri Gopal Prabhu, Disaster Mother.
Yeah.
Checked online. There are no comments or questions there.
Okay.
But I actually liked in your presentation, that transmission tower, how the electricity is flowing. And if the bulb is defective, then it will not flow through. Basically, right? It's like if you're not submissive or you're not doing your devotional service, then you will not be able to accept that knowledge. That was a very nice analogy and point you made there. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhu, and thank you for doing this, service, and thank you. You are always there for all the classes, and thank you so much.
It's an opportunity for me to listen to realized souls like you.
Thank you. And if there are no questions, we will end the class, and then we have our regular classes starting again at Saturday morning, and Sunday evening also we have our Sunday feast class. But again, Friday evening is Harinam, so please do join us at Palo Alto at the intersection of Emerson and University Avenue. So with that, I will take your permission to end this class here. Vancha kalpadrubhyascha kripa sindhubheva patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha.
Sri Gopal Prabhu ki jai.
Kote Vaishnava ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai. Hari Bol.